as a part of this enhanced control by the security state over the public, we're seeing the rise of this counter disinformation industry or counter disinformation experts. And they pose as civilian actors, they pose as organic, but the reality is they are a facet of the security state as well, the intelligence apparatus. Mark Zuckerberg disclosed that the FBI essentially told him to suppress any discussion on Facebook of the Hunter Biden laptop, which was a trove of corruption and criminal behavior that I think could have actually altered the course of the election, which means they were manipulating US politics. An unelected security apparatus was seeking to guide the outcome of the election away from a Trump victory. But the FBI has been doing this for a long time. There was actually a hearing in the House on supposed foreign interference, Russian Facebook ads and China, Iran, and Venezuela hacking the brains, all the official enemies hacking the brains of Americans. But it's also clear that there are elements beyond the FBI that are telling social media companies what to do. And we can talk about my own experience at the gray zone with this because it's pretty extensive. We're right in their crosshairs. Why? Because this isn't about fighting disinformation. It's about suppressing and silencing anyone of any prominence who disrupts the establishment narrative, particularly when it comes to foreign policy and US interventionism, but also on COVID and other issues. These elements exist within the intelligence services, but they often operate through what we call cutouts or front organizations, one being the Institute for Strategic Dialogue. They all have these seemingly anodyne, banal names that make them appear serious and kind of objective and neutral. And if you look at who's behind them, who's funding them, it's the US State Department, it's the British Foreign Office, which actually oversees MI5, MI6, and it's industry. It's the tech oligarchs. It's Bill Gates, who has plowed $325 million of his fortune into media in the past 20 years and is increasingly funding this new fact-checking industry, which for some reason never checks the lies that are told by establishment bureaucrats like Anthony Fauci or Bill Gates himself. They're always trying to guide the public into obedience and support of official policy and narratives. That's who's behind this. And they don't want their fingerprints on it when they're taking on an alternative outlet like the gray zone. This whole disinformation industry is actually about protecting the greatest propagators of disinformation of our time, our elected leadership and the security state that has lied us into war after war after war. They're running around calling people fascists while they're funneling billions of dollars into a Ukrainian military that has integrated literal neo-Nazi battalions like Azov and Aidar into its ranks. The irony cannot be overstated, except when I do state that irony, I run the risk of being censored. We're moving towards a long-term economic crisis, which always leads to political uprisings of one form or another. So the pandemic restrictions, which I think had the ultimate effect of enhancing the control of a global transnational elite and weakening the political power and economic power of the global working class, it only postponed the inevitable. We talked about the uprisings of 2018 and 2019. Those uprisings are returning in the midst of an energy crisis in Europe, which was brought in through deliberate decisions to inflame this proxy war in Ukraine and then to basically boycott Russian gas and oil. Germany is bringing troops back onto the street. I mean, we saw them bring troops onto the street during the pandemic as a show of force. We saw troops on the street here in Washington, D.C. Germany has plans to bring them back in October. They're preparing for more repression, and the public is out there in the streets protesting, whether it's the Dutch farmers protesting this elite top-down transformation of food systems that is being carried out in an undemocratic way to answer a real problem, climate change, whether it's them or people in Puerto Rico protesting mass privatization and neoliberalism, or people in Panama protesting the rising prices of food. I see it all as one thing. And what we're doing, we have to keep a clear perspective on what's being done to us. This is not about fighting disinformation. It's about enhancing control. It's not about fighting viruses, although viruses are real. It's about dividing us and controlling us. people increasingly know that they're being lied to. Trust in the media as a whole, which really is synonymous with mainstream and corporate media, is at an all-time low. And I see that as a good thing. And it means that the people are behind you. If things seem hopeless, and they really feel hopeless in the United States, our experience at the Gray Zone, where people have just come to us to support us against all of these censorship attempts, that's really what's keeping me and so many other people in alternative media going.